I'll bring it in. Oh, yes, Dan, I'll bring it in.
Bring it in, baby.
I'm bringing it in. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're just like you. We're just wondering what our future on Twitter looks like, which is probably a good thing. Dead. Who needs to tweet? Like,
it's
honestly,
dead. Twitter's dead, everyone.
Kill it with fire.
But you can schedule tweets right now. You can't tweet regular style, but you can schedule them. So anything that's happening in your timeline, someone had to just like schedule for 1 minute from now.
Are we like the children of like a very unhappy like marriage where like, what's his name? Elon Musk. He's like, I need to buy a Ferrari because I feel bad about life. And he like buys it. And then he's like, oh, I didn't want that thing. It's too expensive. How do I get rid of it? Oh, I need to sell it now. Okay. Well, let's turn off the tweets.
I don't know, but you can still schedule. The whole thing is, I don't know. So,
and we're all just hanging out for the experience. Like we're just going to go down with it. He's going to be at the bottom of a bottle and we're going to be like tweeting the last seconds of our Twitter lives, just waiting for Elon to pull the plug.
If we don't get the confirmation on this damn deal, I'm going to go to the bottom of a bottle here soon.
I like the tweet by Damon R. Who's like, I'm this many years old where I don't care about the trade deadline. Just tell me what it is when it ends.
I want to
really pay the bills in fantasy.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I sent you my list. Did I send it last night? I made it last night, and I was looking at like who am I thinking is interesting at the trade deadline. The list was short, because there's not really a lot that's materialized. But Sexton, it was like, okay, Conley's got to go, somehow, some way. Now this thing with Russ, I think we even talked about this ? I don't know. Maybe it was like if Russ could land somewhere, Utah would make so much sense because, back then we thought they wanted to lose games, but you could have a lot of fun with Russell Westbrook triple doubles and losing games in Utah if you are so inclined. But then there's that whole buyout talk, and that I don't get. Like if you get Russell Westbrook in this deal, like why wouldn't you play him?
Because it'll make everybody on that team worse.
Yeah, but aren't you trying to lose games? I don't know.
Yeah, I would rather lose another way. Losing with Russ is so sad. I've been watching these Laker games for the last, 30 years. But it's so bad. I got yelled at hard earlier today for saying that removal of Russ is addition by subtraction. And it's just...
Hasn't that been the case since even during his MVP seasons? I mean,
yeah, that was always been the thing. Even when he was great, he was a narrow band player, which was like your team wasn't going to lose more than about 40 games, but you also weren't going to win more than about 45 games. And as he's declined, that narrow band just keeps sliding down the board. We're like, oh, if you have Russ, you're going to win exactly between 20 and 27 games now.
If you think that we're just waiting until the end of his career to pile on or something, I know I was predicting this 5 years ago that he would lose the physicality that made him effective, but he would still think he had it and he would still do the same stuff. It would just be a lot worse and it would be very, very bad.
Oh, you could always we didn't come on here to pick on Russ, but you could always tell from the beginning that this was not a self-awareness guy. There's some guys in the NBA that have self-awareness, that adjust their game as they age. I mean, honestly, LeBron is one of them. He's changed his game as he's gotten older. He can't do the same stuff he did before. Russ was always built more in the sort of Allen Iverson mold of I'm going to do the same things until the day my wheels come off.
At least Iverson had the creativity.
Right, he could shoot a little.
He could shoot, and he kind of knew what he was doing when he was doing it. But Russ is just give ball, go.
Yeah, that was fun when he could get to the rim and do it. It was fun.
That Oklahoma City Thunder team is one of the most interesting squads because I mean you got basically three players who at one point in time people were arguing were the best in the league, and they were all on the same team, and they had 0 basketball IQ at the time.
But but didn't Kendrick Perkins save their season?
He did. You know what? If for all of you Corey Joseph aficionados and your Nemanja Bjelica's Bielitsa.
There you go.
Bielitsa. That's not how it's been said in Sacramento for as long as
I was just bitching about this. I don't mean to take you off course here, but Isaiah Hartenstein just told everyone that his last name is Stein now.
He did that, huh?
It's not Stein anymore. Now it's Hartenstein. I don't know why players take 7 years.
People giving me crap for Şengün. Is that correct? Şengün?
It is, as far as we know right now. Maybe he'll change.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I believe they had it wrong in Houston, and then they like corrected themselves. It's been done 50 different ways. Sorry, I don't get the enunciation guides anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore.
And media people don't know how to do the all caps. That's the one that you put the emphasis on. It's how to do a pronunciation guide. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you to talk about Bielitsa.
Yeah, Dan, this is my show, not your show. Come on.
I know. I'm just
anyway. No, before all of that, before those, those tidal waves of great Twitter content, it was the Kendrick Perkins show. People are like, what do you got against Kendrick Perkins, man? What do you have against Scott Brooks? Did he beat you in high school? It's like, no, he took 3 of the best players in the NBA and basically didn't teach them a damn thing about basketball and let them do everything that they've done. Now, with the exception of Kevin Durant, he's really evolved his game. But back then, he couldn't even he couldn't get the ball past half court against press coverage. And he constantly would get, stuck up above the 3-point line and couldn't get the ball on the ground because they couldn't manufacture a way to get him a touch in a way that, he could not get stuck and jammed up top. And those guys were always running against the shot clock. And then defensively, Kendrick Perkins was like worse than Bielitsa or whatever his name is. Bielitsa. Anyway, it was the sole reason they were losing. And they had Serge Ibaka waiting in the wing. So it wasn't like they didn't have a warm body to put in there.
Yeah. Remember Serge? He was really, really good then too.
And what was great about that is Brooks won Coach of the Year. I think it was that year. And so all these media people voted Scott Brooks as Coach of the Year, and they were always talking about him as doing the great job that Scott Brooks is doing. And they were literally running themselves into the ground, and they should have been so much better. I think that team could have won 2 championships, maybe 3, if they just knew how to play the game, together. And they didn't have that issue with Perkins, because we see with all these other centers that can't defend when it matters, if a team wants to, they can just put that player in a simple pick and roll and get either an open 3 or an easy, shot at the rim, or, move the ball, get the switch they want, whatever it is. They can base an entire offense around it. And people are like, we have no idea why the Thunder aren't winning. It's definitely not Scott Brooks's fault. He's doing a great job. And then I would tweet about the reason that they were losing all the time. And it was the same reason over and over again. So it got a little repetitive.
But that's okay. Because sometimes people need repetition to really.
Well, yeah, if you can't learn it the first time, you might as well try it 100 times and see if you can get it then.
All right. So what are you talking about today, Brew, before I take myself out of this mix?
Yeah. Let's get you out of here. I got a list. I got a ton of things. I got players to talk about. Dan will probably put questions up on the air. Do we want to throw some questions up? I think that's been custom. We want to help some folks out before we get into the flow of that. We'll take some questions. We got some trade stuff. We got this evolving trade. I might rely on you guys to get me the intel as we go here. Looks like we fixed the sound. Best Buy. It'll sell you a piece of equipment that works the second time around. Best Buy. Free advertising. Best Buy. No, I'm not irritated at all about having to go back to that place.
Let me do the following. I'm going to try to get some stuff up on the screen here alongside you, but it's really hard. My plan was actually to put tweets on the screen. Here, maybe we can do it this way.
Did Elon stop you from doing that too? Did they stop you from eating corn dogs, Dan?
If I'm having trouble finding them, that's the real problem here. Here, let's see what I got. I think I can do this. Where's this tab? All right, here's a Woj tweet.
Oh boy. Look
There
at
you go.
that. What the heck's going on underneath that? Oh, is that that's the D-Lo ad?
Yeah,
Where he throws a cell phone. I mean, how great is it that D'Angelo Russell might be back in Lakerland and they need him? This is cool.
Yeah,
now
they really do.
I don't know how this works defensively. Like, I mean, there's a part of me that says Anthony Davis might get it together and be like good at defense in the playoffs. He can definitely still get to shots. He can definitely still, do things defensively, but he's so slow, like comparatively. And I just don't think that teams are afraid of him. So now you're going to add another bad defender. LeBron kind of, I mean, I'd like to see him step it up to just know where his, this is my playoff level LeBron defense is, because we don't really see that in the regular season. Defensively, there'll be a mess, but at least it makes them interesting, because without this addition, they don't have a chance in the world to get to the playoffs or I mean, maybe a play-in and maybe they get lucky, but for them to be at least interesting. I thought Kyrie was that was like the perfect landing spot for him, and it would have made the league and the team interesting. But Russell is good offensively. He can get red hot. His fantasy value is going way down in this location if this goes through. So that's a bummer for him. And I think we've mentioned it a couple times to, try to move on from Russell, because this is about as good as it was ever going to get for him. Injuries in Minnesota obviously helped him out. And, now he's going to be in a place where LeBron rules. The other sides of this deal, I think Mike Conley to Minnesota is a great idea. I mean, kind of a little shocked that they were able to come up with a good idea like that after this most recent bad idea that put them into this spot. I think his fantasy value remains pretty similar. Maybe he gets a little bit more engaged because they realize the stakes there, and a little bit more consistent playing for a team that, not that Utah hasn't been in it, because they have been, but playing for a team that's got expectations. I think Mike Conley is at least a little bit more interesting, maybe a little bit more likely to play in some games that matter down the stretch. So it's a plus for him. As we get to the edges of this deal, the Lakers are coming out like bandits if this is what this ends up being. If they somehow get Beasley and Vanderbilt, that's huge. I mean, Beasley's a really underrated player. The thing he does well, he does really well shooting the three. Vanderbilt, we love him. Put him in a team like that, and he'll probably look really good, because they will have him doing the things that they don't want to do in LA. Their fantasy value is going to go down in LA decidedly. Though with Vandy, you might not see as dramatic of a drop. I think Beasley, the little value he had, will get evaporated fairly quickly there, even if he's useful because he can shoot. The Jazz, what are they getting out of this? Like Westbrook, that's the last piece of this thing. And yeah, he might get bought out. I don't know. I mean, we talked about this in the open.
Chris Haynes tweeted that the expectation was, if this went through, that they would buy out Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I really like Chris Haynes, but it seems like sometimes the other reports have been more accurate. Maybe it's the case that this report is from Westbrook's camp and he wants to go somewhere else, get his money and then land somewhere, maybe play for a title, that kind of a thing. We'll see. I mean, you said at the open, like, you want to lose the right way if you're Utah. Russ coming in would definitely impact the everybody. I mean, it's not smart basketball, and that's what you don't want during development. But in terms of, like, if they want to try to win games, he is a warm body that can put pressure on a defense in the way that he does. It's not a bad landing spot for him. I mean, Russ, if he's going to play this year, and I would think he's going to play kind of no matter what, I don't think he's going to like pout his way into I'm not playing right now and I'll wait for the good opportunity to come along. I think he wants to play. So I'm not convinced he'll get a buyout from Utah, but that's a place where, there's not a lot of talent overall. I'm sure they would love to sell some tickets, surrounding a Russell Westbrook there, to some fans who aren't as, engaged or as dialed in on what the actual impact of having him on the floor is. So to me, as somebody that is relying on Russell Westbrook, and as he fell to me in a draft very far, and he's above value for where he was drafted for me, so I'm happy with his production. I'm a little bummed, but I'm happy that it's Utah. And I think I kind of thought it would be Utah at the end of the day, which is one of the reasons I pushed the button because I really didn't want to draft him at all. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Fine. So anyway, that's it on the trade as of right now. It sounds like details are going to come in during the show, so we'll keep an eye out. Even though, I don't think we pay Dan Vespers. We don't pay Dan Vespers to watch The Wire and feed me info live.
Well, here, everybody can see my timeline on their screen. I'm just going to leave it up because there's only like 15 people tweeting right now. So, life should be pretty easy. You guys want to see who I follow? This is who I follow. Congrats, viewers. Well, you can watch.
Wow, you're following QAnon, dude? That's crazy, man. You and Jim Kozimor.
Yeah, well, they got the Russ trade first, man. What can I say?
Because Q told them it would happen.
That's right. Is there
anybody? I don't want to get like flooded by Q people in the comments.
It's true, and I'm a burger emoji right now, so no one can see if my face looks sarcastic or not. Yes, I changed my avatar to a hamburger.
I don't know why you're asking questions if people like the burger content. I mean, it's the best content on the web today.
Goddamn right. Burgers.
The Burger King is going to come sponsor that. I can just feel it.
I would really like a burger sponsor. In-N-Out would be my preferred burger sponsor.
Is that your go-to? Is the In-N-Out?
I do love me some In-N-Out out here. Oh, look, there's 5 tweets that came in the last. Everybody's trying to figure out.
Josh was like, I can't tweet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna take 5 questions. I want 5 questions. Dan, can you tee up 5 questions?
Yeah.
I don't want people to be writing into the show like, "Hey, I really like your show, but you guys suck. Please stop talking about non-fantasy content."
Oh, look, 4 tweets coming in at the same time. I think it's back, guys. I think it might be back. Let me reload TweetDeck and see if that works. No, it's still TweetDeck's still dead. But maybe, perhaps Twitter's not. Damn it. How am I supposed to see everything without TweetDeck? I kind of wanted everybody to just see what I was looking at here. But, whatever. I can go smaller. Here, let me make it smaller and switch it so that how do I make it so you're the big face?
Our one friend, and we're not clowning on you in particular, friend, but you were like, we can't even see Bruski. And I was laughing. I was like, do you want to see Bruski?
There we go. I switched him. So now if I do this, can you still hear me now?
I can.
Oh, look at that. So I can talk. This is how producers do it.
Yeah, I need a little earpiece so you can tell me, hey, stop saying what you're saying.
So everybody can watch this ad for something.
I've always wondered what they're saying to like Shaq and Ernie and Charles in the earpieces. Like
it's probably
like God. Shut up, stop.
Maybe they're just whispering the word dong over and over again like we did on our Friday show. Dong.
I don't think you were whispering that, Dan. That was your inner dialogue was definitely an outer dialogue.
I'll bring it down to a whisper.
Dong. You're really trying to mess with people.
Yep.
Somebody's like, I'll select dong, please.
Yeah. Dong for 400. I got your first question on the board.
All right. Points league. Who's the pickup at forward?
I'm really excited about the fact that I can talk to you and no one can see me. They can hear me though.
They might be mad, but I mean, if you saw Dan's bed right now, you'd be concerned.
You'd be very concerned.
You'd be calling for a wellness check on
or like
Vespers here.
Or a housekeeping company.
Oh, you guys have a housekeeper?
No, I wish.
You'd call it, man.
Oh my God, they'd be fired so fast if I came home and saw the bed in this condition. No,
they don't get very far very fast. I'll just let you know. Points league. Who's the pickup at forward for Vando replacement? THT question mark. Man, I really think you got to wait and see because like. Kelly Olynyk's been in the news, as far as possibly being in the deadline rumor mill. So I was looking there as, for opportunity and value and trying to figure out like, okay, what are we actually going to see out of this? And I kept thinking, I don't know. I kept kind of coming back to Vanderbilt and hoping that he would stick around. He's going to be needed. That's for sure. Kessler's going to get a boatload of minutes, but it kind of tells me that they're going to come back with somebody, bring somebody back in some sort of a big man. You can't go, Azubuike all season long, especially if you have designs on playing in the play-in. Kind of makes me think they'll keep Olynyk, but he's a constantly in the deadline, guy. The Celtics need a big man in the worst way. So I kind of think this big man thing is got some wheels this year. Pirtle is a long-term play. Be interesting to see where he goes. And then Toronto, it feels like they're definitely dumping at least one or two players. Any fearless forecast for a trade? Whew, man, this is not the year for me to be a fearless forecaster. You have to follow every rumor and get the backstory on every rumor. And then you kind of feel like you've got an angle on something just because the pulse of, everything is pointing towards something. And I am definitely not that guy this year. Fearless forecast for a trade. The one that was catching my eye, but then I was like, I don't like either of these players, but it really does seem like Fred VanVleet is gone in Toronto. So you'd be looking at, I kind of like Banton, believe it or not, over Malachi. Malachi, we went there in the COVID year and it didn't really pan out. It could have panned out, and he definitely had some talent, but he's just not really developed. He hasn't gone forward. Is that a Nick Nurse problem? Is that a him problem? Is that just a simple opportunity issue? But if they don't bring anything back, then you're going to look at a timeshare between those two. But that's about as much opportunity as you can get in the players that aren't on fantasy teams and could be valuable after the break, and valuable in more than a top 100 way. So that's my moonshot, maybe. Though on the same team, Boucher and Achua are definitely on the radar going forward. And I think that team might, you might remove, if they only do the one trade and they keep OG, I think you'll see that team actually improve because the guys that will be on the floor, they'll know that they're needed. There won't be this, constant tension about who's the guy. So that might actually be the opposite effect of what they're going for if they're indeed trying to tank. But I don't know if that's the case or not. So that's my fearless forecast. I'll give you a Banton 10% chance of success.
This is not a thing, by the way. This is not a thing. Someone suggesting a possible landing spot.
Oh, you're showing me Russ to Miami? No, they're not going to do that.
I've heard. Who do you think, if he's bought out?
Actually, I think look, Russ to Miami makes sense in the sense that Lowry is so cooked that it's they're looking at this and they're probably thinking we have to add a guard, and their injury situations sort of throughout the roster, so they're thin as well. That window is kind of now for them. So, yeah, they could be in the market, but Russ, that's a lot of no shooting on the floor.
Yeah, one Russ solo is a lot of no shooting. There you go.
In case there's a hot pickup by the trade deadline, what's your drop priority?
Terry? Priority. Oh, okay.
Oh, I like the way it's framed. Simmons, Jabari Smith, or Mark Williams. Okay, so we have to assume that Mason Plumlee gets dealt, because if not, Mark Williams is a totally different boat. I think he would be your obvious drop here. Jabari Smith, I think the only thing that's going to make me confident in him having value going forward is if they get a good point guard somehow, like a veteran point guard. Somebody shows up, let's say Ricky Rubio shows up or something. It would take more minutes per game for me to be confident, but somebody who can say, hey, you go stand here, and then let's run a simple action and let's get a good shot. The Şengün stuff it's good for Şengün, and not quite it's not bad for the others because he's able to find these players and get these assists and get the ball in a good way. But in terms of is it predictable? Does this team know how to run this offense? Is it good for everybody? It's mostly good for Şengün right now. And yeah, he's connecting, but I don't think it's improving the play of the players around him. So Jabari, not going to be good until I think he gets a little bit more structure. And then next year, as he develops, he'll be better than last year and so on and so forth. But so I think he's a top 125 guy the rest of the way. Simmons theoretically has more opportunity here, depending on how this thing shakes out, but I'm just not confident in him at all. In fact, I'm not going to drop Eason at all. I don't think in any scenario. I think there's just too much there to not, see that through. I mean, if you get into a do or die and he's not producing, then the conversation changes, but too much there and too much reason they should be playing him, and they're tanking and they've waited too long to give him more minutes anyway. I just think it's too good for him. So I'd be picking between Simmons and Williams. So if I don't get like a Mason Plumlee is not going to be traded, if that report doesn't come out, which it's not going to come out. If it does, it would be a surprise. I'm looking at Ben Simmons as the drop here. And if it's 9-cat, and I don't think his turnover numbers are that bad right now, I'd probably be a little bit more aggressive on that as well. Mike Conley's value is good in Minnesota too? ? Brooks asks. I have him. Yeah, it is. I think it goes up just by a little bit. I think he becomes a little bit more reliable. They'll still manage him. They'll still make sure that he's healthy. If he gets anything before the playoffs, they'll take him out. So he's still risky, but I think his value goes up because the games are more important. And then does Olynyk benefit from this if he isn't moved in Utah? Yes and no. I think we've seen Olynyk take bad situations and get his in them, so he can start to be the playmaker. And they're going to need that if Conley goes and they don't get a commensurate player back. So he would benefit from this, but I'm very concerned about him in a number of on a number of levels. One, I think he's an injury risk. Two, as an aging player, I think that there's always going to be a question of whether or not he can get it done at a high level. He's not the guy that they want to develop there. That's obviously Kessler. There's this trade potential that's out there. And, he really needs to be in a situation where he's the guy to get that Houston Olynyk that we saw a couple years ago. I would say he benefits, but let's wait for the other shoe to drop before we finalize that statement. All right. What else do we got? More questions or Burger King, NFL, NBA Sports Ethership. That actually works. Yeah. Burger King, if you want to sell burgers with a side of fantasy analysis, I think we do both pretty well. I know I cook a mean burger. I'm pretty sure Dan Bespers cooks a mean burger, but it's probably a Costco patty if I had to guess.
I eat a mean burger.
You don't cook one?
My dad was a big barbecue guy, and there's this thing for me now that he's gone where I don't really feel like
the burgers.
I don't really feel like barbecuing. Took the fun out of it when I lost the old barbecue bez. But I still eat the crap out of them. What do we got next? Parker Finley. What can we expect from Sexton if the trade happens? I mean, let's see here. Like, this is a guy that he came into the league as a defensive guy, and then he merged into a chucker, and the defense kind of stuck around. He was taking shots from beat writers, as the guy that was sort of the unhappy one. That's reading a lot between the lines. And then next thing you know, he can't get paid. He's got a lot to prove. I always thought, like, okay, if Utah's picking him up, like, it's a little bit of a wasted transaction. You're kind of putting your eggs in this basket, and you do have Mike Conley, and it's like, why are you bringing him through? And yeah, the possibility that he would be next up could easily have been a part of their game plan. And if that's the case, you're looking at this guy stepping into a really nice role here. What we know from him in the past is a really high functioning, high performing Colin Sexton has top 40, top 50 potential. I don't think he's that though anymore. I think he's got to climb the ladder back to that. And, there's questions about his knee and whether he can actually be that guy. And what does that look like after a year of not being that guy and being thrust into that position? I don't think he has the juice that he once had. I would say a high end scenario for him is something like top 70, top 80. And then, he does have a late round floor, which is nice because you can, at this point, gamble a little bit. And if you catch lightning in a bottle, then maybe you do get something like top 60, top 50, and that would be a huge win, obviously. So I think Sexton's in a good spot. You just got to keep those expectations in check if you're talking about a deal. I'm thinking a high end scenario again, top 70, top 80 for him. All right. How far can the new look Lakers go in the playoffs? I mean,
let's ask resident Laker expert Dan Bespers.
I was only going to jump in to say this trade is not a done deal yet. If Minnesota gets weird, the Lakers would probably end up with Conley instead of Russell, and Conley has another year left on his deal, so it does kind of change the ledger side of things.
I don't like Conley in Minnesota or in Los Angeles. I like him in Minnesota.
Yeah, they need somebody to steer that boat in a bad way. And
just organize everybody. And I think he'll be aggressive in Minnesota. I think if he gets to LA, he's just going to do the classic Mike Conley fade to the background,
which is kind of what he did for middle 6 weeks of this year. Even in Utah,
he does it all the time. It's like he's like, I'm not that guy right now. And then when he wants to, you get this really good product. It's nice.
It does say they get posturing from Minnesota, though. They're like, oh no, other people want D'Lo too. Come on, someone give us a second rounder and we'll stamp it. Because, they're a newer front office. They got their pants taken down on the Gobert stuff. So now they got to look tough.
This is absolutely, and it's funny, the new owner stank in the league. I mean, you saw it with the new guy in Phoenix. I mean, he's sitting there telling everybody's like, I made gazillion dollars. I can do this. If like he's literally in a quote said, I can do this. Like he could come in and make the calls. It was no wonder that Chris Paul's name got attached to that, failed deal. Like that just doesn't happen. Like the Suns in any normal capacity would not be floating Chris Paul's name out there unless they were absolutely sure that they had a real shot at a good deal. And for Kyrie, like, so at any
rate, that's like two sides of the same, or two. It's not two sides of the same coin. It's two different coins that somehow end up landing the same way, where Chris Paul ends up pissing off all of his teammates and Kyrie ends up pissing him off, but in two completely different ways.
Sometimes I think Kyrie ends up endearing his teammates somehow, but they're like, oh.
But that's because, dude, Kyrie does it's what everybody does nowadays. Pretend you're the victim. Everybody loves to be a victim nowadays. Not everyone can be a victim.
Who wants to be a victim?
Everybody right now.
No, I know.
You get to complain freely.
Yeah, I there's no value in being a victim. Even if you're a victim, like real victims, they want to get out of being a victim.
Yeah.
Like anybody that's a real victim that's working at, getting out of being a victim, they're like, I need to stop being a victim. So that's kind of ironic thing. Back to the basketball at hand, the new owner comes in and all of a sudden Chris Paul's name's getting floated out. New owners in Minnesota make that dumb trade. They're absolutely trying to, turn this thing around because it so clearly isn't working there. And, they're going to have to figure that out. So, yeah. And then the Lakers, their window is now. I don't know if it was Joe Tsai that eventually, I love the way you cleaned up my my Discord.
I took the F word out of I ported it over to Twitter. It's not a secret that I'm copying and pasting in that stuff because Bruce's arm's going to fall off if he has to do that crap.
Thank you for that, by the way.
But and then people see like one come out from my account or the Ethos account by accident.
Yep.
Like, oh yeah, Dan is screwing up this copy paste.
Am I even a real person or am I just like a hologram that Dan Bespers is using?
You're a floating head at this point.
I am. My head's feeling like I have so much illness going around.
I'm a hamburger, so
I'm a hamburger.
I'm a hamburger.
How far do the New Look Lakers go in the playoffs? Look at me keeping us on track now. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah, but you know what? We can do whatever we want. This isn't fantasy NBA today. Excuse me.
Can we cut that and put it into a promo? Can we replace Red from all the opens? I don't know if she still does our opens.
Of me saying we do what we want. Or coffee.
Yeah, we do what we want. How far can the New Look Lakers go in the playoffs? The New Look Lakers, let's say they get D'Lo, they can win a series. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's tough out there. Both conferences are deep and good. Like I think it's going to come down to matchups for a lot of these, potential matchups.
If the Lakers take If this deal happens, let's say this one goes through, and then they've got D'Lo and Beasley and Vanderbilt, and they'll cut some loose pieces like Wenyen Gabriel probably is not on the roster anymore after that, and who the hell else is barely playing? Juan Toscano Anderson pretty much doesn't see the floor anymore. I mean, that's really not a bad team. They got to guard somebody though at some point.
How great was the during LeBron's shot that Thomas Bryant was like posting?
Yeah, he's backing in on Shea, boxing. I got position, Bron. Thomas,
give me the ball. Give me the ball.
Look at every LED in the entire arena had Kareem and LeBron listed 1 point behind him. Like, you can't figure out what's happening. You know what? I appreciate him playing. He was getting that damn position. He was getting that seal. He doesn't know. Maybe LeBron was going to pass. LeBron always passes it. Not this time, man. If the Lakers would need, I think
they could at least win a series. After that, if they win a series and they're in the final four in the West, I think there's no chance they win unless there's something crazy like something crazy would have to happen. I don't know.
I need to see them move Lonnie Walker for someone who can guard anything, because he becomes beyond superfluous if you have Malik Beasley.
Oh yeah,
Lonnie Walker's just sort of bad Malik Beasley at that point. You got to move him for somebody who can go rebound or guard. I could actually see them winning 2 series provided the matchups are right. Like the Lakers kind of hang with some of the upper tier teams. Like they match up relatively well with the Nuggets for whatever reason.
I was going to say the Nuggets because Davis doesn't get exposed for his lateral quickness against that team.
Yeah, they match up terribly with the Clippers. Horribly. That's a team that would take the Lakers out in a blink. I didn't think they matched up well with the Grizzlies, and then they snuck one out against them. But
Jaren Jackson is way better than Davis. I know this hurts when I say this, by the way. I know you don't agree with me.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, if you compare AD's last ball game to it,
I don't even. Yeah, with that. What? See, that team is just so mentally out there. Like, I don't know what he was doing, but he made himself part of the story on LeBron's big night. Like,
yeah, that was weird. I would like an explanation on that, but I don't know who else is
like
the top.
15th on the list of concerns.
Lakers could beat the Kings if they got them in a second round series.
Anybody can beat the Kings, but then the Kings can beat anybody if the refs don't call clutching and grabbing, and the Kings are smart and they clutch and grab, and that helps them keep Sabonis from being a complete target. Then they become like 10 times better. That's the one thing that I think they have going for them that you can't really plan for, is if they can figure that piece out, because that offense is just really good. And
very good. Very good.
So that's why if not, I think they can beat the Kings. Yes.
That's why I said Lakers could maybe get lucky and get to it. Really depends to me on matchups. Like if they sneak through a play in and then they somehow beat
I also think LeBron would not go to, like, if you play the Kings and you don't run pick and roll at Sabonis every single time, I'm questioning whether you belong in the NBA.
Yeah, they pretty much did in that game they won in Sacramento, right? Lakers put up like $140 in that one.
I'm trying to remember. I just know LeBron goes off script so much, and it's like, I get it. You scored the most points in NBA history. If there's a player that's allowed to go off script, it's you.
Yeah, but it's not wise. But here's the beauty part. If this trade goes through, then the Lakers only have one guy who goes off script instead of 2. And the other one that goes off script is really bad on offense now. So please let the off script be 4 LeBron step backs a game.
How many 2 of 16s have there been in the NBA this year? That's what I want to know. Because when I saw the Russell Westbrook 2 of 16 from the field, when I saw that, I was drinking something.
You spit take it?
I wanted to spit take it.
You know what's really funny is I actually didn't mind the 2 of 16. I was more annoyed with his 6 live ball turnovers last night. Nothing kills a moment. At least he got a shot up. 2 of 16. Live ball turnover, which is basically just like, here, Jalen Williams, have this ball and have a layup.
Can I say something nice about Russell Westbrook? Like, he just happened to be in the Kings arena when I was in the Kings arena covering the Kings way back when.
He's probably a fine human being. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, that I've always gotten good vibes there. But seeing him in person doing what he did on the fast break, I've never seen anything like that. Like, it's just the speed and like the Euro step, and sometimes he would be going faster than you've ever seen a human being go with a basketball, and then just stop, and like just amazing. And so I've seen it, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame based on that alone. All this other stuff will get him in.
Yeah,
and probably deserves it, but
it's unfair to pick on him. But I was trying to explain this on my own podcast, and then we can keep going here, and I can get you back in front of my burger. The Russ thing, it's not so much his fault as it is that someone gave him $40 million a year. He signed a contract that was 4 times what his on-court value is right now. So the fact that he's on the Lakers and he's playing at what effectively is like a plus minus of a role player not only doesn't help the team, but it also means they can't sign 4 other role players with his money. That's why. So it's a very short way to say this is all Russ's fault, but it's like the combination of Russ and his contract's fault. And then it's obviously the Lakers' fault for sending every viable NBA player they had on their team to go get this dude. That doesn't make Russ a bad human or even a terrible basketball player. It means that his value on the court right now is like Pat Beverley's, but he's getting paid 4 times more to do it. And that's an impossible contract to deal with. Anyway, back to here. Do a thing.
They never should have done it. Yeah. Obviously. It was done at the time. It was easily done at the time. Zach Collins is a good pickup. No way Pirtle stays right. I mean, we'll see what happens with Pirtle. I just don't think Zach Collins can handle producing on his own. Like, I don't think even if they were like, yeah, he's going to start and we're going to give him 35 minutes a game, this isn't going to happen. But if they did that, I don't know if he could physically handle the minutes, and I don't know if he would produce in the minutes that he was given. So with that, I think I'm out on Zach Collins. 150 value the rest of the way. Do you think the Cavs could make a run for OG? As I drop my finger exerciser there. I don't really think so. I think the Cavs are pretty much loaded up. I'd like to see the Cavs try to round out their bench and get some production there. OG would just cost too much. I mean, obviously you would love a player like that on your bench. I don't think OG wants that, and I don't think they would pay OG prices to get him into that role. But look downstream if you're the Cavs. I mean, absolutely find more pop there because they're going to get exposed for that. Is Bobby Portis a good stash? Yeah, I think Portis is going to come back and he's going to do exactly what he did before. Maybe a little less, maybe like a round or 2 off those numbers. But generally speaking, they need what he brings, and he's definitely locked down his role, and he's very important to that ball club. He'll probably be back after the All-Star break if I had to guess. What do we got? We got Parker, Eason, or Sexton right now. Ooh, that's a good question. Give me Eason because I don't think we have a question about his health. I think it's only going to get better from here. I think he's got a great stat set, and I like the fact that he seems to be playing hard. And with Sexton, I think there's a lot of question marks regarding, well, we'll just call it other, and see if if he can dodge those. Then he's got a shot at that top 70 to 80 value that we're talking about. But Eason could go top 50 with that stat set, so I'll go Eason. You got Team Crop Dusters here. I think Sexton usage can go up to 28%. The names. You guys keep it clean out there. Sexton usage go up to 28 from 23, and he's 50, 40, 83 this year, and career decent efficiency, top 60 potential rest of the season. Sure. Yeah, no, that's kind of, what we had hoped in the year that he got hurt was that it would continue along that trajectory. It's just a question of that 50, 40, 83 this year, he's getting it at that usage. It's easier to get those numbers at that usage. So, if they do crank him up higher, then you're going to see those numbers slip. But top 60 potential is definitely in play. I think it's a little rich. I'd rather say 70 or 80, but you make good points there. Team Crop Dusters. Craig, what's up, man? One of my favorites. What would it take for Cam Thomas not to score 40? I mean, you got to get like an in his prime Michael Jordan, on the court, to defend him. Nuclear war. I don't know. Dinwiddie plus Curry and Durant back. Yeah, this is I think all eyes are on KD right now. And I've got a ton of KD and it's killing me and blah, blah, blah. But it makes sense for him not to play just based on the injury alone. But it also makes sense if he's over what's going on in Brooklyn and he's going to, now be talking trade with them behind the scenes. Like nobody's going to want to talk trade with KD on the court, returning before his knee is ready. So him not being back makes sense. Dinwiddie, does he stick around? And then Curry's not as much of a factor because he has a hard enough time staying on the floor himself. If KD is back, that alone takes Cam Thomas and puts him into sort of this inconsistent scorer category. I mean, obviously, if you have him, you got to see it out and just see where this thing ends. But, Dinwiddie also is a guy with top 50 numbers, coming into this thing, playing in a place that, is known for handing the ball to Luka and getting out of the way. So it's not like he's a putz or anything. He's going to come in and he's going to command touches. So I think Cam Thomas is, a few good trade deadline breaks away from a little breakout here in the second or final third of the season here. So it's fun. And you know what? We've all seen flashes of it. And it sort of speaks to the way that these teams get constructed and minutes get, doled out and predetermined that he didn't get a chance to do this sooner. So it's fun. And it's definitely for him to score 40 that much. It shows you what kind of ability he has. And because that's not something you can just roll out of bed and do. Anyway, enough on Cam Thomas here. Matthew Lloyd, who do you see most likely as a landing spot for Fred VanVleet? I mean, the Lakers would be great, but I don't think it's going to happen. Fred VanVleet's going to command a nice little pretty penny. And there are some, I would say, bad teams that don't bake into the equation that his knee is a total question mark. And then they cut him loose, kind of via the OG injury. But so he's out there putting some of the best numbers he's put up this year. And now you're going to trade for him. So, the price could get really high here. Miami, I think, would be a fantastic, just like a classic spot. I don't know. It's like we need Stephen Bagel on the show and did I get that name right, Dan? I know I don't ever get a name right ever. It means I don't watch the games. But
actually, it's just Bagel. Interesting.
Just Bagel.
Yeah.
I remember I asked this before and you told me. So it's Stephen Bagel. He would know. Like, he probably knows right now what's going to happen during the trade deadline because he studies it so much. It's at Birdwright's Pod. Just ask him. He loves it. Absolutely loves it. And he has been predicting stuff based on just the math and the cap and the mechanics of it all, mixed with the foresight, of course, because he's a huge fantasy guy. So, like, I think, but that team, oh my God, they could use him. I just don't know how the salaries would work off the top of my head. And obviously they're not going to take Kyle Lowry back, in Toronto like that. Let's see here. Did I get a cup of water? I didn't. Well, we'll go to coffee here. Pause for a coffee break. It's been hard to kick this bug. The issue with D'Lo in the playoffs, asks Tenasis is him. Issue with D'Lo in the playoffs is that he gets targeted and doubled early on so that his shot is thrown off. Then he can't make anything at all. You're preaching to the choir here. It's going to be a big old issue, for the rest of his career. He doesn't defend. He can't defend. He's just a really good shooter with some good savvy with the ball. It does seem like he's kind of cleaned up some of his, his over exuberance, but still it's really hard to demand those shots, especially the kinds that he takes and other players like him take when you're not playing defense. What do we got? I think Dan, if I had to guess, Dan went and checked on the kiddos here. We got, Bryant killed Sabonis on PNR. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Next up was Russ in Miami on a buyout. See, I don't know if I have any control over this stuff. I think I do. Russ and Miami on a buyout would be, it never worked, but maybe it can work for us and they're desperate. Yeah, I mean, Miami has made those kinds of moves in the past, but still, you're really pushing. If you had Jimmy and his I don't feel like shooting right now problem, and then Russ and his I will shoot at any time problem, and then you've got Bam also struggles with the yips. You know, 3 of those guys can't shoot. I mean, Jimmy can shoot, don't get me wrong, but like he's not a shooter, and that would be bad for them. Next up, Co. Is that Co? Yep. Co. If both Pirtle and Plumlee are traded, who carries more value rest of the season, Collins or Williams? It will be Williams. You know, Zach Collins has shown us that maybe he can hit some threes, maybe he can block and steal, but he doesn't do them all at the same time, and the overall number is relatively low. With Williams, he's in that part of his career where he could either maybe possibly just not chase a lot of steals and blocks, but it doesn't feel like that's the case. A lot of times it's the opposite problem. He's just going to go for too many of them, and you know, he'll get reeled in, but he also will be at the best, you know, 1, 2, 3 years of his, you know, his blocking ability with the young legs. So long story short, Williams has a better defensive and overall stat set. So if they do give him the full run of the yard, say he gets 30 minutes a game, man, that's going to be nice. So I did see a question later here. I think it was Roberto. Somebody asked, it'll come up here at some point. Yeah, Roberto asked later on, why are you so high on Mark Williams? It's that reason. It's not like he's jumping off the page as one of the best players we've ever seen in these in this regard, but he has at least sort of basic big man stats, and big man stats climb the ladder real quick. Steals and blocks are hard to come by. That's why we call him cash counting stats, and he'll do that, and he'll be efficient. And you know, body wise, he has, you know, the makings of an NBA body, so he can't, you know, be exposed defensively over and over and over again like other players. So I think he's going to be pretty good. What do we got? Vassell is on the wire in one of my leagues. Is he worth a pickup? Should I drop Jabari Smith for him or Eason? I wouldn't drop Eason because I think that's sort of cash in hand right now. Jabari Smith, if you were to drop Jabari Smith for Vassell, you would be doing one of those almost like too smart to do moves where, you know, you're hoping you get top, say 50, 60 Vassell. You hope the game's played is not in a bad spot. If you can manage that, it makes it a lot easier. It's probably going to be back-to-backs where he doesn't play. And then, you know, just the question is how bad really was this injury? He's been out shooting the ball. There's been talk that he'll return after the All-Star break. You know, Popovich made a comment about 4 weeks ago to that effect. You know, if this was not that bad and they looked at it more as like, okay, hey, let's get this done, and now you can actually be at full speed. That's the scenario that I'm hoping for, because I've stashed him in a couple places because I want to see what news do we get during the All-Star break. And if it's good, then I'll be glad that I did that. If it's bad, I'll just toss him and, you know, take another shot somewhere else. But and then you're in first. That actually plays into this a little bit. If you're in first and you like your depth, and if you lost Jabari Smith, it wasn't going to, you know, really create issues for you, I think absolutely, you know, take shots of this type. It doesn't need to even just be Devin Vassell. You know, get out there and try to figure out, is there a similar move? Because you're in first already. You know, you're looking for high-end upside at this point, and Vassell definitely provides that. But, you know, like Eason, for example, is a player you should not drop in this circumstance. You know, players like Mark Williams might even come into play. I probably, you know, I'd say this. I would probably want Mark Williams over Jabari Smith at this point. If you told me they were going to get him a point guard in Houston, I would maybe think differently, because he's just having a really hard time getting shots. He's a very talented player. He's got a good future in this league. He definitely needs to fill out. He's completely underdeveloped and lacks strength. But you know, get him a point guard and get him a year to get some bulk, and you're going to see some better play out of him in years 2 and 3. Mark Cuban mentioned that they traded FDS. Is another question here. Traded FDS to create more minutes for Josh. What's your take on Josh Green? I mean, I like Josh Green. I don't know how that's going to work out with those, you know, 2 guys ahead of him shooting the ball. So with that, I'm not that optimistic that he cracks top 100, even if he has a say like mini breakout. I think he's got a real hard time cracking top 150. going forward. And that's, I presume you mean DFS there. That's, I think that's Mark Cuban just talking, is what I was going to say there. All right, next up, ranking in order. Markkanen, Porzingis, Gobert, Jared Allen, Mark Williams. Well, this is a eclectic group here. Let's go with Markkanen. Then I'll take Jared Allen, even though I'm not excited about him nor his future. I think that he is on his last sort of. I think he's not last, but I think he's on the downward trajectory. He's just looked really slow to me, and I think that's what happens with bigs. So that's not for this year, though. You can deal with that in future years. So I'll go Markkanen, Jared Allen. I'll go Porzingis because he is just balling out, and I do think this is the F-it year that Dan cleaned up for me, posting my Bruski breakdown on Twitter for me on that day. Thank you, Dan. The thing about Porzingis, that's the F-it thing, is I think he spent so much time on the shelf that he is not in preservation mode anymore. He's like, I want to play. I want to show what I can do. So yeah, the upside's there. And if they stay healthy, obviously Porzingis will be better than Jared Allen. It's just that question of health and also what are the Wizards going to look like down the stretch. Gobert already dealing with injury stuff. If Cat comes back, then, you get more of what we saw in the first half of the year. Not excited about Gobert, injury risk or healthy production. So I'd put him fourth, and I think you got to keep him ahead of Mark Williams just because, we're asking a lot. Like, could Mark Williams be a top 50 player? Yes. Is Plumlee likely to be traded? Yes. Then the next hurdle is, do they just split him down the middle, 24 and 24, him and Nick Richards? Do they add a third big man or play small, because they don't want to give either of those guys the full boat of center minutes? So that's another semi-risk. I don't think it's going to hit Williams as much. I think that might hit Richards more, but at any rate, he's definitely last on this list. But the idea that I'm even talking about, is it a question of him or Gobert? I think it sort of speaks to some of the issues that Gobert has. Roberto asked, did Dan ruin his voice for tomorrow's Trade Watch episode by cheering for James yesterday? And I would say, yes, he did. All right, we'll see if you guys have any other questions that filter in here last second. I'm going to look at my cheat sheet here. I don't think there's much to talk about with LeBron. I was going to talk about the Jalens in OKC. I think Jalen, Jalen, is really blossoming. I think he's definitely probably like 75% shot at top 75 value the rest of the way. Jaylin, Jaylin, he has some stat set problems, even though he popped off in this last game here. Definitely a fun player that we'll keep an eye on, but just keep in mind that stat set hasn't been so sweet. Naz Reid, I think he's dealing with back stuff. That's why he hasn't really been able to step in and have those explosive games with as much frequency as we've seen in the past. MPJ has continued to go big, and he's had some circumstances help him lately with injured players and whatnot. I like this as a sell moment. He's been inconsistent his entire career. If he turns the corner now this year, I'm willing to lose in that scenario. Hartenstein, he had foul trouble, so he didn't continue the top 80 run that he's been on lately. If he's healthy, he's a better player. I mean, that's kind of what that boils down to, and it's been good to see him produce. So the All-Star break could be great for him. See him come back on the other side of that thing. Now, yes, Mitchell Robinson will be back, but I think the bigger issue with Hartenstein, which is going to take a while to get figured out here, is that he will produce in small minutes if he's healthy. So he could get 20 minutes per game and be at least a late round guy for you. So if that continues and he gets the break, I'll be looking to either hold or acquire if I'm targeting that level of value, like the top, say 100, 120 range is where I'd feel comfortable placing his value if he continues to play well and gets that rest. We're not going to go big because obviously Mitchell Robinson has played well this year. Hartenstein has lost his place in line, really. You got to keep playing well to keep your place in line. Houston was on my list. Just the defensive stuff. I really will learn a lot tonight. They're going to get a rematch against the Kings. That film was so bad and embarrassing, and I don't know what in the world anybody's doing talking about defense with that team, but they're like the worst defense I think I've ever seen. And I've watched a lot of Kings teams. So the comments from Silas, they were they were probably going to come out the game before. I watched that presser and he held back. He did the old Happy Gilmore putter throw with those comments. And then this game, they came back and I didn't get to watch more than like 5 highlights of that game. Each one of them showed me all of those players just standing, like just not even attempting to contest shots. I'm surprised that he didn't lose it more than the way he lost it. So they'll either rebound. If they rebound and they come out and play fired up, then maybe this thing can kind of continue. But if they come out and lay another egg, which is possible because they can't defend, even if they want to, but if they come out and they play hard, maybe this thing doesn't go south for Silas. But I think he'll be the guy that has to wear it if this team continues to not defend after he goes off like that. Or who knows, maybe they see it out for the rest of the year. But the big point from a fantasy perspective there is it feels like he's now willing to make some changes that he wasn't willing to the game before. Who gets hit by those changes? Not really sure. I mean, you got bad defenders everywhere to pick on. It felt like they gave the team to Şengün. It's really hard to give the team to somebody if they're not going to try on defense. And if they've already got the inability to play on defense, then it's doubly as hard to say, hey, go get all the glory and get all the triple doubles. But, everybody knows that the reason that we're getting killed is because teams can just go at you worse than they go at Domantas Sabonis. So it's a problem. They might not care. Şengün might put up top 40 numbers the rest of the way. I have him sort of pegged at top 60, top 70 the rest of the way, but it's slippery. If he doesn't make his free throws, he could lose his value. If he get benched, he could lose his value. If they don't run everything through him, he could lose his value. And then defensively, he's gambling to get these steals and blocks. He has an explosive leap, but he's one of the slowest players, if not the slowest player in the league, with no lateral movement. He's shorter than most centers. So he's eminently exploitable every night. You can base an entire offense around it. So does that, hit him? We'll see. If they give the reins back to Jalen Green and Porter and, whatever happens at the deadline, he needs volume is kind of the point. And they were willing to give it to him. And they have been willing to give it to him. And simply in a vacuum, points, rebounds, and assists and, running an offense through him, is he the best option there? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a coherent offense. It's not perfect, but, there's definitely a lot to like. And they could see that through, but again, it gets really dicey if players are watching you get all the glory, but you're not defending at all. We got questions. Oh, no, we don't. Like and subscribe, homies. Yes, I should have said that. Broadcast school is not paying off. And I spent $20 on that. The Dan Besbris Broadcast School, $20. And look at me, I suck. Io Dosunmu has been picking up the pace. I think that there's a good correlation between Io doing well and the Bulls doing well. And if the Bulls figure that out, we might see some of the stuff that we saw last year with Io. He's been in a 3 games in 4 days mix. 2 games are already passed. So you got a little chance to see if you could catch that on the way up. Deadline, though, could change a lot. I know that Vucevic's name has been in the trade deadline radar. That would change the dynamic of the team. But they got bigger, problems and fishes to fry. But Io's been on the radar. Cam Thomas, we talked a little bit about him earlier. Bol, we said this was going to suck for Bol, and it might suck coming out of the break. It really might. It's hard to say if they play Jonathan Isaac more, if they don't trade anybody. You got Okiki coming back. A lot of ways this could go south. But conversely, Bol could be traded. Guys could get hurt. Wendell Carter Jr. is always hurt. He's been hurt recently. Maybe they say, all right, the deadline's passed, especially if they start losing games into them. Now we want to see what we have in Bol. The numbers that matter, 24 minutes per game, top 125 value. So you could kind of do the math from there. If top 125 doesn't, float your boat, if the recent stuff is so bad you can't take it, I don't think it's like the end of the world if you drop him. But keep in mind, 24 minutes per game, and he hasn't really been given the kind of leash that he had in the beginning of the year. If they really go full Bol, I think 24 minutes is more like top 100, even top 75, because some of the numbers can scale with him really quickly. So you look at that and you go, okay, top 24 at top, or 24 minutes per game, top 75 value. Okay, what if I get 28 minutes per game? Now we're really talking about a high value player. That's why I've been more adamant about hanging on here and seeing what happens after the break. Those players aren't around very much. So I think you take a week or 2 after the break, and if it still looks bad, you move on. But this week, I think we knew it was going to be bad for Bol. So Eubanks, I think we cover him enough. Lowry, Vincent. If Vincent was healthy, it would be a clear, he's going to gobble up all the usage and be good, but I don't think that's the case. He's not that healthy. Achua, Boucher, Sexton, Malachi, Banton, Vooch, Kenyon Martin Jr. He could move. That might open some things up for Eason, but I don't know. I think Eason is in his own bucket there. Questions. All right, let's get these questions answered. Is Pirtle and Plumlee sell high? I think that's a yes. Beans asks, are Jalen Williams or Okongwu worth burning an add-on? Yes, and yet, well, tomorrow you're probably talking about in the next 24 hours. Jalen Williams, yes, I think he's going to go top 75 the rest of the way. Okongwu, I think, might be more of a top 100 guy, but you always have that upside if Capella goes down, though. That really, we didn't see like a massive Okongwu explosion. I think you might be able to wait on Okongwu because people aren't really I don't think they generally understand that he's still playing well. He's still a top 110 guy at minimum right now, which is totally playable. Jalen, definitely. Go add Jalen right now and feel good about it because you're going to get that value the rest of the year. And I don't know that you're going to get anything better from the deadline itself. Parker Finley says, drop Jabari for Eason rest of season, 9 cat. What if there is no trade? My God, my voice. Yeah, no, I like Eason more than Jabari. If you hear that there's a point guard going to Houston, I could change my take there. Like and subscribe, homies. Read the sign. Listen to the great Dan Besbris. If anybody knows Twitter, it's Dan Besbris. And guys, this really does help us. Like, these algorithms have changed Twitter into, I don't know, something not resembling the way it was 5 to 10 years ago. But it really helps us out when you like and retweet our stuff, so we can continue to grow and we can continue to add new stuff. And we have so much new stuff in the pipeline and new people and all this just greatness. And, we just want to make sure that everybody can see this stuff. So when you guys do that, it's super helpful. It looks like we're going to sneak in another question here. Srirana was offered Bam and Poole for Jimmy and Big Al. Good deal. Thoughts on Poole rest of season value, playoffs, and March 19th? I mean, I think this is great from the Poole perspective because they're just going to keep relying on him. And yeah, you're going to have players come back and whatnot. The Steph injury looks pretty, I don't know if he'll be back before March 19th. So Poole is a full go, and I don't know what league size you're in, or pardon me, what format. It definitely matters here. 9 cat, he's a top 100 value on the year. In 8 cat, he's a top 50 value per year or per game. So that really does matter there. If you're not punting turnovers, I mean, you got to value this deal differently, but just purely basketball wise, he's going to keep being the focus and being the guy that takes on the usage as they rest their vets. Bam, having a decent enough year. I don't think it's the year that people thought he would have, but, or the Bam backers, I should say, because we weren't really big there. So that's his valuation. Then Jimmy, in a playoffs, head-to-head playoff situation, I don't know. He's going to take games off, and that's going to hurt you. Big Al, same thing. I kind of think you make this deal. Like Bam versus Big Al is, and that's 8-team, 9 cat. Okay, so you're in a really small league you need upside. So I don't know if you're punting, but I kind of want to know if you're punting, because if you're punting, then the Poole thing is, it doesn't even matter. If you're punting turnovers, you've got 2 great assets there in Bam and Poole. And with Jimmy and Al, you're looking at games off. I would like that side no matter what. If you're not punting and Poole is going to wreck your turnovers, then, or not wreck, but he's just significantly not as valuable. Then I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, maybe you get some higher end numbers out of Big Al, but he hasn't been that good this year. It's not like he's tearing it up or anything. I like the Bam and Poole side, and you are punting turnovers. Done. Bam and Poole. The great Andre Lemos. The great Andre Lemos. And if you haven't listened to his podcast, get over there and listen to his podcast. EuroLeague is like basically the sister league to the NBA. It's you gotta know what's going on over there, and nobody does it better than Andre. And he takes on the rivalry there between Ishbia and Gilbert. I didn't know there was a rivalry, but it doesn't surprise me. Dan Gilbert, not the best hombre, if you ask me. I don't know what's up with Ishbia. I know he paid a lot of money to get the team. There was a time I would have been dialed into this kind of thing. But if there's a rivalry, I guess I'll just take the unknown quantity in Ishbia, though I have severe, just based on the way he's run in here and done this to start, this Isaiah Thomas stuff getting leaked. I mean, just this messy new owner stuff. I might actually end up losing. If there was a rivalry here, Dan Gilbert might be the seasoned NBA owner, and Ishbia has the new owner stank that he needs to go through. It might be that Gilbert is the one that wins, but I'm going to take Ishbia because I just don't know. Maybe he's not that bad of a guy. Trade Curry for someone like, and that's what I'm measuring on. I don't know what I'm doing here. Trade Curry for somebody like Siakam. Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, if it was a roto league, you're going to get more value out of Siakam the rest of the way. If it's a head-to-head playoffs league, you might have a healthier Siakam who's going to play more games, and and that's going to be that. It's definitely going to give him the ball and get out of the way. So, I mean, you're not going to get that pop, that first-round pop, but it's definitely a smarter move to get somebody like Siakam. And I really do think that knee injury is yeah, he might come back and it might bite you, but this is the kind of risk that you can take where you can make some margin while it's a little bit uncertain, and they're just not going to risk Steph Curry. Like, I think it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks after the break, and those 2 to 3 weeks alone might buy you the margin for Siakam to be more valuable. So I'll go Siakam there. All right, my head is ringing. Still not quite over the flu, but we want to keep bringing you these shows. And I really appreciate the participation today. You guys carried the show. You guys made this a lot of fun. I thought the questions were really good. You guys put up with me and Dan talking about God knows what. I mean, not a single complaint that it just wasn't a straight dose of fantasy info, like right into your arm. I love it. I love it. And I've always said that whether it was during my time at NBC Roto World or here at Ethos, I feel like we've got some of the most knowledgeable fans, listeners, followers, readers in the industry. I mean, you go to like a comment section for some of these big sites and it's like something else. I'll just leave it at that. So I really do appreciate you guys bringing intelligent discussion to the table here. You guys are totally fun. Great names. I got new comments, and it's the rivalry over mortgage business. Well, that sounds super compelling. Let's get an ESPN 30 for 30, the notary story or something. I don't know. I'll close it on that lame dad joke. We'll see you guys on our next show. I think it's Friday after the deadline. And then tomorrow, obviously, the trade deadline show. You guys know about that. Hit that thumbs up button. Do it for Dano. He works his butt off for you guys. This is his baby. I want to see records on this show. And it's always great. And you get some of the smartest people in hoops talking about this stuff as it goes down. Hopefully it's a big one. We've been disappointed for the last 3 or 4 years, but hey, regression. You guys have a great day. We'll see you soon. Peace.